From a highly secure network of top secret locations across South Texas, this is the Spurs Insider Road Warrior Edition. I am Mike Finger, joined as always by Express News Spurs beat writer Jeff McDonald and sports editor Nick Talbot. Jeff is coming back for a cup of coffee in San Antonio, a cup of green tea. After spending a week on the road, he's about to head back on the road, just like the local Cagers, who had quite a road trip, Jeff McDonald. 4 games gone, underdogs in all 4, and stole 2 of them and stayed alive in the NBA Cup. Where do you want to start?
Man, that's a lot. That's a lot. I think going to that road trip without Victor Wembanyama and Sochan Castle and knowing some of the teams they were facing, it's a 4-game trip. And I don't know that if we predicted that trip, but 2-2 sounds okay. I understand if Spurs fans want to feel like they left something on the table, or as JJ Redick said, left some pizza in the box, because they had chances to win at Phoenix, and they had chances to win at where was I last night? Minnesota. So, they were in control of both of those games for like 3 quarters, and then ended up kind of losing, going away. But overall, you got to think it's a good trip. That win in Denver was something else we didn't see coming. I think I might have, if people want to go back and listen to last week's podcast, I might have called that game in Denver unwinnable.
Yeah,
and I was proven incorrect because they won it. Kept, like you said, stayed alive in the NBA Cup, advanced to the quarterfinals. For the first time in the Spurs Cup history. So I guess you got to be satisfied with what they've been able to accomplish. But man, they need to start getting some of these, Victor and Sochan back. They did get Dylan back on that trip. That's another thing that happened on it. But they really need their 2 big guns back to keep this going, because it's going to catch up with them eventually.
I mean, there's recency bias. The last game the Spurs played was in Minnesota when they did let a 4th quarter lead slip away. But I mean, and I don't want to be this homer defending the local Cagers, but when you go on a road trip like that without the last 2 rookies of the year playing in 0 of those games, and you win 2 of them, including at Denver, like how can you be upset? That is exceeding expectations. I can't get too upset over letting a couple slip away down the stretch when you don't have your guys. And I know nobody has their guys anymore. Everybody's hurt in the NBA, but I mean, that's a successful trip. And, I guess we could start with the status of Sochan Castle and Victor Wembanyama. They've both been out for a couple weeks. We're at the point when they're supposed to be reevaluated. They are on the court doing on-court stuff, but we're recording this before the Memphis game on Tuesday night. They're not going to play in that game. You tend to believe that Sochan is a little further ahead of Victor in his rehab.
Yes, it's just a different injury and a different type of injury. And I understand people are really itchy to get Victor back on the floor. Fans, I mean, the coaches too, the team, everybody is. And I understand people that are like, Dylan's was worse and he was out 24 days. So shouldn't Victor be back sooner than 24 days? And like, maybe, but from being around the team the last week and just kind of having informal conversations with people, I don't know that Victor, I'm trying to think how to say it. Okay. Here's how I would say it, because this is how I kind of put it out there yesterday. If you're asking me if Victor Wembanyama is going to be available for that NBA Cup week, so that's not this week, but the week after, I believe. And I have
7 days from Wednesday.
And I have to bet my house on him being available for the NBA Cup. I think it's possible that he is available for the NBA Cup, but if I have to bet my house, I'm betting against that. But
you shouldn't bet your house.
If your
kids live there.
Oh yeah. Also, well, yeah. They come with
that's a reason to bet your house.
They come with the house, everybody, by the way, if I lose. Now, if you're asking me, and like another big tent pole date of the December is, if you're asking if Victor Wembanyama will be ready for Christmas, will he be back on the floor by Christmas? And the answer to that is absolutely. Like, barring some kind of setback, It's probably not probably, sorry. It is a stone cold lock that he is back by Christmas. So I think the best bet is somewhere in between the NBA Cup and the Christmas Day game. You start to see Victor come back, and they've got, depending on how long they play in that cup, they've got a couple home games in there. I think. Well, no, they could have a couple home games in there. They have at least one scheduled now against Washington. They've got a road trip to Atlanta and Washington, and then a home game against OKC before they go to OKC for Christmas. I think somewhere in that area, if I'm having to like play, it's like a roulette wheel or something. You have to place your chips on what date you think he's going to come
Why is
back.
there all this gambling on this podcast? We
I
don't
don't know.
endorse that.
Yes, sure. Um, I think it's somewhere in that area between the cup and Christmas Day. I'm not saying he's absolutely out for the cup. I think it's possible. I think from my semi-informed impressions, but I don't think it's probable that he's back from them because they're just trying to make sure he is 100% and not going to re-injure it. And the thing is, you can't really know that, right? I don't think you can't ever be 100% sure he's not going to come back too soon. So I guess they're trying to err on the side of extreme caution there. And it's just
can you name the previous champions of the NBA Cup?
The Lakers won one year.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. Was that the first one?
Yeah, I believe so. Indiana.
They won last year. Here's the thing. When the team I'm covering is not in it, I don't pay that much attention to it.
Well, the point is that Milwaukee won one year, didn't they? The point is that the NBA Cup has not worked out well for the teams that have won it, like in the long term. And it's a fun thing. It's I think been better than I thought it was going to be in terms of fan interest and just giving us something to write and podcast about early in the season. But placing any more importance on those cup games when you're talking about bringing somebody back from an injury than you would over any other games in December, I think is a mistake. And that's how the Spurs are looking at it. Like if I don't think there's any extra urgency, and I think you'd agree, to get players back for games just because they're cup games as opposed to regular December games.
Here's another hypothetical that will never happen, but it's just interesting to think about. Assume the Spurs do get to the NBA Cup Finals, like the championship game. That doesn't even count in the standings. Like that doesn't even help you get to the playoffs. So if your goal is it's almost like you would sit guys in those games if you needed to.
Well,
I mean,
the reason you wouldn't is because I think Keldon Johnson explained to you why you wouldn't.
Yes. Yes, that's what I was that creates a little bit of a hornet's nest because what if it again, we're just being hypothetical here. What if it really is super in Victor Wembanyama's best interest not to play in the NBA Cup championship game for whatever reason? And you hold him out, but now you might be costing everybody else on the team $500,000.
I was not on this trip with you, but from what I gather, and I can only imagine, knowing how Keldon tends to wax eloquently in locker rooms, what Keldon might have said about his potential $500,000.
I'll see the best I can do without like betraying confidences and stuff. But the conversation kind of started by his locker. De'Aaron was there, and De'Aaron was talking about how. It was after the Denver game, after they had qualified, and De'Aaron was talking about how if they keep winning in this cup stuff, the NBA is going to have to adjust the Spurs schedule. They're going to have to move that Washington home game back a day to accommodate the NBA. If the Spurs went all the way to the Cup Finals, that home game against Washington has to be moved back a day to accommodate the Spurs in the Cup Finals, which creates a back-to-back on going the other way. With a home to Atlanta, and Keldon said, and I'm going to leave out the profanities, but he says, "Man, I don't care for $500,000. I'll play a back-to-back to back-to-back to back. I don't care. I'll do anything for $500,000. I'll run through a wall for $500,000." And then that we get the what he's going to do with the $500,000. And
buy a lot of chickens and goats.
Well, it was actually very altruistic. He says he's going to buy a very nice car for David Jones Garcia.
Ah,
who also does not drive. He doesn't have a driver's license,
So he'd
so
need to
he's
buy a driver as well, a chauffeur.
yeah. And so then Keldon was talking to be the only guy in the NBA that goes from Uber to a Lamborghini.
That's pretty good. That's pretty
So
good.
that's what's that's that kind of hilarity is what is on the line, with this NBA Cup stuff.
The what the heck happened in Denver? I think that'd be a fun game to rehash on this podcast if we're trying to be positive.
Devin
Uh,
Vassell went crazy.
you
Was
had a
that
really nice. I'm going to extend my streak of Jeff McDonald compliments on this podcast. It's freaking the listenership out. But a nice little mini retrospective on the sort of coming of age of Devin Vassell, man who's been here for since the 2020 draft, has had his ups and downs, his different roles, and is becoming, I believe, what Mitch Johnson called a winning player.
Yeah, when he was drafted, and there was a whole line of these guys for a while, like a whole succession of them. But when he was drafted in 2020, at the time, he was the Spurs' highest drafted rookie since Tim Duncan. And, obviously being drafted number 11 overall is not the same as being drafted number one overall. But when you're tabbed that way, when you're kind of presented that way, creates a certain sort of expectations. And he was coming into a team, they were in the lottery. They were not a very good team. And so, his rookie year, he was on that team with, LaMarcus and DeMar and Rudy and was kind of bided his time. But by his second, third year, they're kind of grooming him or maybe not grooming, but trying to see what he can do. Can he be this go-to guy? Can he be, a pick and roll ball handler who can create for himself and others? Can he be the head of a snake of an offense? And it turns out he can on a team that's going to win 22 games. That's not who he is and not who he's supposed to be. But as this team has grown up, as you've added more options, you've added Victor Wembanyama, Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox, probably Dylan Harper is going to fall in that category. What you need from Devin Vassell has changed. And so, he's when they're at a full strength, he's the guy that doesn't really need to be scoring 20 points a game. And, he's just a guy that can you make a big shot here or there? When the offense bogs down, everything else, can you just give us some moments? And not just with the shot, but, defensive activity, getting rebounds, that sort of thing. So that's when they're all healthy. And what was kind of interesting in Denver, they're not healthy. Obviously, Victor's out, Steph's out. There's just more opportunity. Somebody's got to shoot the ball. And he kind of showed that every now and then he can be a guy that goes and gets you points, gets you buckets. And it came on the heels of a game in Portland where he was also pretty good. He had 23 in Portland to help them win that game. And I believe those were the, when you total that up, you can do the math for me. That's the most he scored in a 2-game stretch his entire career. So if you think of Devin as a role player who can occasionally have a bust out game, and that's what you want him to be, and also the role player stuff, like Mitch is very adamant that Devin needs to be involved in every aspect of the game. In Portland, I asked about Devin because he scored 23, and Mitch said I liked the 6 rebounds. And then, Devin scores 35 in Denver, almost reaches a career scoring high. I asked Mitch about that, and Mitch said, I like the way he fought over screens to play defense, on the defensive end. So they want him to do all that stuff. And if the scoring has to, when they're at full health, if the scoring has to sacrifice for him to do all that stuff, so be it. They'd rather him do all that stuff.
He's been an unquestionably significant bright spot of the season so far. I remember having discussions before the season started. I don't think it was on the podcast. It might have been off the air when we were talking about who might come out of the starting lineup when De'Aaron Fox returned. And there was that question about, Julian Champagnie, Stephon Castle down the line. And I didn't completely rule out the idea that it could or should be Devin. Just because Champagnie presented that 3-point shot, that 3-and-D type of role in that starting lineup, and the thought maybe Devin could do more off the bench, but I mean, there's no question he's a starting player now and fits into what that group does as a unit. And I don't guess that we wrote it before the season started, but we could have. This was a big year for him to kind of prove how he fits, and he's exceeded my expectations so far.
And the listeners and are probably screaming that he followed that game in Denver by going 1 of 8 for three
Sure.
in Minnesota, but nobody shot the ball well in that game,
Except for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
That's true. That's true. But if like if Devin were that guy that could just go out there and whatever he was in Denver, make 7 threes a game, he wouldn't be Devin Vassell. He would be a MVP candidate. That he just that's what he is. I think he's a little bit of a polarizing player among Spurs fandom. I think what I would encourage maybe Spurs. I think this is what happens sometimes. I know this as a fan. I know this for myself as a fan of other sports, of other teams. You kind of form an opinion on what a guy is, and that kind of sets in stone in your mind. I would urge people that have done that with Devin Vassell to just sort of start with a fresh slate, fresh eyes. Don't think of him as, quote unquote lottery pick or the highest drafted rookie since Tim Duncan at the time. Think of him as just how he fits on this team and how he gets those tasks done. And I think you'll see what we're talking about, that he's having a really good year.
I'm doing this really quickly in my head, but is this right? Think about this. He went from the Spurs' highest draft pick since Tim Duncan to now, if you name the players on the Spurs roster,
I mean, so then Sochan became that.
Well, I believe he's now the 6th highest drafted player on his team. If you think about it, if you count De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
Like you have Victor, Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, all top 3 picks. Or top 4, I guess, for Steph. You have De'Aaron Fox, who I believe was picked in the top 10, and you have Jeremy Sochan. When you think of it that way, he's the 6th highest drafted. Devin Vassell's the 6th highest drafted player on his team, and probably, in terms of expectations for what he needs to do for this team, no higher than your 4th option. To be what he is now, that's pretty good. Like, you don't need him to be a part of a big 3. If I think championship teams, playoff teams, contending teams have had players like Devin Vassell as their 4th,
absolutely
6th guy, and that I think you're right. If you recalibrate just your image of him in your head and what you need from him and what you expect from him, I think that he can be, as Mitch Johnson said, a winning player in that role.
Yeah.
Another thing that I noticed this week, I was toying around with on ESPN. They have a WAR tool, wins above replacement, which isn't a perfect stat. It gives you a picture of a player's overall contributions. It's by no means immaculate, but it's interesting. And you go back to the 2019 draft, which remember was headed by Zion Williamson and Ja Morant, has your DeAndre Hunter, your Tyler Hero, RJ Barrett. Do you know in this season who leads all players in WAR from that 2019 draft? All players in the NBA.
You're asking me this because it's Spurs, right?
Uh-huh.
Then it has to be Keldon Johnson.
It's not Luka Samanic, who is also in that draft. Keldon Johnson. He is this year, 6 years into it.
That's interesting.
He leads that draft in WAR this year, and a lot of those guys are having down years. But that's something, man. Who would have thought that?
That's it. Right before we started this podcast, I was putting together the preview box for the Magic game coming up. So I'm on Basketball Reference, and if you go to the Spurs team page, it has the the WAR leaders of season by season, and I did happen to notice that Keldon led the Spurs, but I did not know that he led the entire 2019 draft class. So that is an interesting
2019 draft class.
This is an educational podcast all of a sudden.
He leads the Spurs because WAR. We're talking about what aggregate WAR and not WAR per 100 possessions or WAR per game or whatever. Which obviously you have Victor and Stephon Castle still ahead of him in the average. But for the season, he's provided as much WAR as anybody, and definitely leads the 2019 draft class. What
Yeah.
I mean, those two guys we talked about them before as a duo because I think they'll always be linked in a way, much like sort of you think of Derek White and DeJounte Murray together in Spurs lore and history as being cohorts. I think we'll always see Keldon and Devin Vassell as cohorts, and uh, they've had a similar career arc in terms of people being excited about them to start and then sort of fading on them and being down on them and now kind of reemerging in this new role on this new team.
Yeah.
Kind of a cool thing.
The group that was there before Victor, and there's not many of them left, but the group that was there before Victor, the remaining ones, like all those players have had to figure out a new way to play, a new role. Mitch says it all the time. Keldon Johnson averaged 22 points per game in this league. That's nothing to sniff at. Now, it was for a team that, wasn't anywhere near the playoffs. But to be a guy that you've proven you can go score 22 points a game in the NBA, but now, no, you're going to be a bench player, and we're going to ask you to play limited minutes. And yeah, you're still free to score on the bench, but if you wouldn't mind grabbing rebounds and doing dirty work, and like he's had to learn to be that guy. How do you contribute to winning when you're not going to average 22 points a game? And he's a guy that's done that whole group. We talked about Devin earlier having to do that. And I guess that's, if I'm looking at the bright side, any kind of bright side with Jeremy Sochan right now, he is where Keldon and Devin were a year ago, 2 years ago, trying to figure out how he fits on this team. And for those two guys, for Keldon and Devin, it didn't always look pretty at times. And there were times you watched Devin and Keldon during that kind of interim, trying to figure things out and it not always working and thinking maybe they're not part of the long-term future for this team. And I think if you're looking at any kind of positive for Jeremy, it's like maybe he's in it right now and maybe he comes out the other side. But right now it's not looking so great in terms of what he's supposed to do. What is he supposed to do for this team?
Yeah.
We've talked about what Devin's supposed to do for this team. We've talked about what Keldon's supposed to do for this team. I think part of it is nobody knows. I don't think he knows. I'm not sure the coaches know how he fits, what he can do. So I don't know. I also know it's a long season and things can work themselves out and maybe we'll see something for him. But right now he's not giving them much and they're not playing him much.
This might be a little bit of revisionist history, but I don't remember it. I remember Keldon and Devin both being sort of lost and sort of adrift during their lower moments. I don't ever remember them being this out of it, where they just weren't being played. I think they were always playing. And I'll say it. I wrote in the San Antonio Express News, the Dead Tree Edition, and ExpressNews.com right after Victor Wembanyama got hurt and Stephon Castle was banged up, that this was an important stretch for Jeremy Sochan. That when your team does not extend you before the season starts, when a lot of guys in his draft class picked around him in his draft class were extended, that this was a time that if he's going to show what he can do, this was the moment for it. With Victor out, with sort of, we thought, guaranteed minutes, guaranteed opportunity for him to answer exactly the question that you were just asking. Where does he fit? What does he do on this team? And it hasn't gone great. I'm not ready, like you, I'm not ready to chalk it up to being a lost cause, but it does make you wonder how he does fit, because I don't, and this isn't necessarily calling Jeremy Sochan out. I'm just wondering what the job is. And I think you're right in terms of, it's not just on him, it's on the coaching staff, it's on everybody to figure that out, because a decision will be coming this off. He's going to be a restricted free agent. We'll see. Maybe he just comes back for cheap. Maybe nobody else offers him a huge contract and they're able to keep him around. But it's been 2 weeks since Victor's been out, and we really haven't seen a big Jeremy Sochan game. Stephon Castle's been out for a lot of that. Stephon Castle was the elite wing defender on this team, perimeter defender, which Jeremy Sochan is his that's a part of his game, and he hasn't stepped into that role necessarily. So I don't know. He's got time, like you said, but I don't have the answer to that question yet as to is Jeremy Sochan a part of this team's long-term future? We just don't know yet.
He seems to be lacking confidence in what he's supposed to be doing, especially on the offensive end. I will say in that Denver game, he was one of the guys that helped guard Jokic, and I mean Jokic almost had a triple double because he's that guy. But Jokic got off like 10 shots in that game, and maybe some of that's on Nikola himself. But the Spurs kind of, it seems weird to say they took a guy out of a game that nearly had a triple double, but they kind of did, and Jeremy was a part of that group, and that's the best thing he can do right now is guard people and pester people. And maybe he's a guy that maybe this is counterintuitive. Maybe he's a guy that fits better when they have all their pieces. I don't know.
True.
It kind of seemed like those first 2 games he came back off the injured list when the Spurs are pretty much whole. He was good, just a ball of energy, like grabbing, jumping past the lanes and starting fast breaks and throwing alley-oops and having alley-oops thrown to him. Like he seemed like that's what he was doing, and maybe it's counterintuitive, but he needs to be around better players. I don't know, because the Spurs have good players around him right now, but I'm kind of stumped too, and I know that probably the Spurs are, and like you said, a decision is coming. But there's 60 something games left for him to make his mark, and so we'll see how that goes.
To be more positive, you mentioned it in passing earlier, but Dylan Harper came back, and I don't want to go over the top. I don't want to be ridiculous because the Spurs did just have the last 2 rookies of the year, 2 pretty, in Victor's case, a spectacular all-time rookie season. Stephon Castle, really, really solid rookie of the year season. There have been far worse rookies of the year in the past 20 years of NBA history than Stephon Castle had. But I don't ever remember those 2 guys just being able to like in control, get to the rim whenever they want, like Dylan Harper does. I think that's a part of Dylan Harper's game that you just don't see from rookies. Am I wrong about that? Like, I know that he's not the number 1 option, and that's part of it. Like, defenses were just swarming Victor from the moment he got in the league. But Dylan Harper just seems to be cool with the ball in his hands, and to be able to get to the rim against I was watching a game against Mike Conley in that Minnesota game, and Mike Conley's 53 years old and 6 foot nothing, granted, but he had no chance. He had no hope of stopping Dylan Harper one-on-one. I'm just really impressed with the kind of polish of his offensive game, just less than 15 games into his NBA career. Am I over the top on that?
Well, I guess maybe. I mean, I think he reminds me of Manu Ginobili, but
yeah.
So, the first 3 baskets he scored in Minnesota were drives. All 3 of them finished over 7'1", 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert, who is not what he was at the height of his defensive powers, but he's still 7'1". And where we're sitting in Minnesota is right there, kind of on that baseline in that corner. It's coming right at us. And they were you can see it up close, and they were crafty finishes, man. Because when you're giving up that 5-6 inch height advantage, you've got to find a way to get the ball up on the rim, and Dylan found different ways to do it, like go quick. Sometimes he would this isn't a video podcast, so nobody can see me, but he'd bring his arm wide as it could and like lift it, use his wingspan to kind of get it up there. He had one, I think, that was a reverse layup where he kind of used the rim to keep the shot blocker away. Like, it was just really, it's not just physical speed and power and explosion. There's some basketball IQ there. And I think that when I say he reminds me of Ginobili, and I don't want to, you know what I mean. I'm just
right.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's going to be a future Hall of Famer, but maybe. Um, that's the part.
No, but there is.
That's the part that
not,
reminds me of Manu, was just the craftiness and the IQ of it all.
Yeah, I mean, neither of us are like wordsmiths or like paid to describe things to the public. So like, bear with us here. But that's what I'm trying to get at is just to be that inexperienced. And by the way, he played college at Rutgers. He was not going to Final Fours like Stephon Castle was. He was not playing in big time college basketball games. Um, to step in and to do exactly what you described, to go at Rudy Gobert, to just get to the rim over and over again, and not just get there, but know what to do when he gets there. Whether it's those high arcing bank shots off that come off above the square on the backboard, to using the rim as a screener, as a help, to knowing when to go into a defender as opposed to pulling up and going around a defender. It's really impressive. I think Dylan Harper might be something.
And
so
then
that's a positive.
you asked Mitch about him after that game, and Mitch says, "Yeah, but you kind of like him get more than 0 rebounds and have 0 assists." Starting to like
Yeah,
Mitch.
sure.
Get a little Popovichian in there.
And that's what I meant too about not comparing his overall game to some of these other guys, but just that specific skill that he has, which I don't think you take for granted in the NBA. The ability to, under control, get to the rim and finish at the rim. That is a skill that, like you said, Manu Ginobili had and Dylan Harper has.
And
Manu Ginobili had many, many, many other skills and attributes and strong points. And we don't know about Dylan Harper on any of those yet. But in that one specific comparison, I think you're not that far off base.
when you were earlier, when you said, I can't think of a rookie that's been able to get to the rim with the ease that Dylan Harper has, I was like, well, the Spurs had one, and his name was Manu Ginobili, but he was also 25 when he was a rookie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, Dylan's a teenager. He's still 19. He's the youngest player on this roster. He's the only teenager on this roster since Carter Bryant turned 20 on the road trip. So, like, this is not to be cliched, but this is just scratching the surface. It's really just scratching the surface of the surface, to be honest.
Yeah. Yep. Looking ahead, we're getting to that point.
Oh,
another road trip after this Memphis game. They played 4 on the road. There's going to be a minimum of 4 away from the Frostbank Center, starting the day after the Memphis game, at Orlando, the second half of a back-to-back, at Cleveland, at New Orleans, at the Lakers, and an NBA Cup matchup. And if you win that one, you have 1 or 2 in Vegas. If you don't, you're back home for Phoenix or the Thunder. But no rest for the weary. What do you think about what lies ahead?
You think it's a good idea to lose that cup game and just come home?
No.
Asking for a friend.
No, I think well, I know what you're getting at, but no, I think of course you try to win it. Don't be outrageous. Don't try to get aggregated.
I think you either want to I actually believe this. You either want to lose that first cup game or just win the whole thing. Like, it makes no sense to go to Vegas for one. Anyway,
well,
what are you asking me about?
I would sort of quibble. Like, this is a stupid argument, but if you lose the first in Vegas, you have a couple days off before you come back for Washington. I don't think that's bad either. I think it's fine to go to Vegas for one.
That's true, but you could lose to the Lakers and just come home, play somebody.
In some ways, losing the final is the worst possible outcome.
Yeah, you're right.
I think that is the worst spot because you have to play that extra game that doesn't count. Also, and then you set up a back-to-back later in the week. So that's kind of a pain.
This wasn't the question either, but aside from like the $500K on the line for every player, what is the advantage of making that cup? If the Spurs aren't playing,
fans like it. It's joy. It's fun.
If you're thinking about just in terms of having the best regular season record you can muster and making the playoffs, well, now you've got to go play the Lakers. Whereas if were not in the cup, you'd be playing two loser teams.
Yeah,
Charlotte and somebody else, and one
You
would be at
wouldn't be
home.
playing anybody from the East.
And well, that's true. But now you're playing the Lakers, and if you lose that when you come home and you play another cup loser, another team that was good enough to make the cup quarterfinals, so you get two tougher games by virtue of doing that, and then you get to the finals. If you do get to if you get to the finals, it's fine. You've won all those games.
This is the problem. I'm going to cut you off. This is the problem with just podcast, hot take, morning debate show America is
Well, excuse me.
does everything have
He's
to
a
be
win.
in service of winning a title? Does everything have to be, why is this important? Why should they try to win when it doesn't serve their goal of winning an NBA title? Can't some things just be joyful for the sake of joyfulness? To competitive for the sake of competitiveness? Like people have fun watching the games. If
your best
the
players
Spurs were playing, if the Spurs did not make the final 8 of the NBA Cup, they'd be playing a worse team next week than LA. It would probably be an easier schedule, and it wouldn't be as fun to watch. You're going to get to see De'Aaron Fox and Dylan Harper and maybe Stephon Castle and Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell go to Crypto.com arena and play LeBron and Luka and those guys, and in a game that with like a winner go home type atmosphere. Like, why not have fun with that? Does it suit their hopes of becoming what are you saying, the 4th seed in the Western Conference? We're not talking about them winning the 1st seed. We're not talking about them in the play-in. Like, it's all just matters of degrees anyway. We figured that the local Cagers are going to finish somewhere between 3rd and 6th in the Western Conference. Am I breaking news here? Like, why not just go compete for it? It's fun. The answer is because it's fun, Jeff.
Now that you're here, it's fine. I'm just saying there'd be some upsides to not having to do all this rigmarole.
There's upsides to everything. There's downsides to everything.
I don't think that's true. I can name a lot of things there's not upsides to, but this is a family podcast.
All right. Well, there's downsides to lots of things too. You might as well just embrace the fun where it comes, because we're getting to that age where there's not as much fun as there used to be. I think all of us are. No matter how old you are listening to the podcast, the fun is coming fewer and far between. So embrace it where it is. And that's where we're going to finish this week, because that's a good place to finish. Embrace the fun where you can find it. Take care of each other and keep it real.